You've probably had a drink at some point without thinking twice about where alcohol actually comes from. It's just there, on a shelf, in a bottle, made on purpose by someone who knows exactly what they're doing. For early humans, none of that is true. Nobody invented alcohol. They found it, by accident, probably more than once. Here's how it likely started. Ripe fruit, left sitting on the ground, doesn't just rot, it ferments. Wild yeast, which is everywhere in the environment, lands on sugary fruit, starts breaking down the sugar, and produces alcohol as a byproduct. This isn't rare or special. It happens constantly in the wild with zero human involvement. So somewhere, at some point, an early human ate fermented fruit that had been sitting out for a few days. And instead of just tasting sour or spoiled, it did something new. It made them feel different. There's actually a theory for why humans might have been primed to notice this. It's called the drunken monkey hypothesis. Our primate ancestors, who relied heavily on fruit for food, evolved a strong attraction to the smell of ethanol, specifically because it signaled sugar-rich, calorie-dense fruit. We may not have started liking the smell of alcohol because it made us drunk. We may have started liking it because it used to mean good food is nearby. That's worth sitting with for a second. The instinct that eventually led humans to breweries and wine cellars might trace back to a foraging strategy for finding ripe fruit in the forest. Once humans started intentionally seeking out and eating overripe, fermenting fruit, not just tolerating it, but choosing it, they were essentially getting mildly intoxicated as a side effect of finding the best possible food. And unlike a lot of other early discoveries, this one didn't require any technology. No fire, no tools, no process, just fruit, time, and wild yeast doing what wild yeast does. The next leap happened when humans stopped just eating fermented fruit when they stumbled across it and started figuring out how to make it happen on purpose. This required noticing a pattern connecting a cause, sitting fruit or a grain in a container for some days, to an effect that happened later, out of sight, with no obvious link between the two. Archaeological evidence pushes this intentional fermentation back extremely far. Residue analysis on pottery fragments has found evidence of fermented rice, honey, and fruit beverages dating back roughly 9,000 years in what is now China. Around the same broad era, evidence from the Middle East points to early beer-like fermented grain drinks, tied closely to some of the very first agricultural societies. That timing is not a coincidence. Some researchers have proposed a genuinely provocative idea, the beer before bread hypothesis, that the desire to reliably produce fermented grain beverages may have been one of the motivations behind humans domesticating cereal grains and settling down into early agriculture in the first place. Under this theory, the drive to keep a reliable supply of a mood-altering, calorie-dense drink flowing may have helped push forward one of the biggest transitions in human history, the shift from foraging to farming. It's a genuinely debated idea among archaeologists, and bread almost certainly mattered too. But the fact that it's a serious, published hypothesis at all tells you something. Once alcohol became something humans could reliably produce, it didn't stay a private discovery. It became social technology. Fermented drinks show up again and again across early civilizations, tied to celebration, ritual, religious ceremony, and hospitality. Sharing a fermented drink became one of the most consistent ways early human groups signaled trust, marked important occasions, and bonded socially. There's also a practical angle. In many early settlements, water sources were unreliable and often contaminated. Fermented beverages were frequently safer to drink than untreated water. Some historians argue this made beer, in particular, a genuinely important calorie and hydration source in certain early societies, not purely a recreational choice, but a practical one. So the full picture looks something like this. an accident of wild yeast and ripe fruit noticed by a species that may have already been primed to like the smell of it. Then a slow, difficult cognitive leap from noticing the effect to deliberately recreating it. Then possibly one of the motivations behind the biggest lifestyle shift in human history, the move to farming itself. And finally, a permanent fixture of human social life that has barely changed in function for thousands of years. The next time you're handed a drink at a celebration, that's not a modern invention you're holding. That's an unbroken thread running back through 9,000 years of pottery residue, an accidental discovery in some rotting fruit, and quite possibly a primate instinct for finding good food that's older than humanity itself.